Hello, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for people who are locked up in their minds. I'm sitting here in my kitchen at my table where I do a lot of work, and I decided to take a short break and make another video about one of the chapters in my book. My book is entitled What's Really Going On, and it contains 31 articles that have been featured in my bi-weekly column in the Grand Rapids Times. Each article is written in the vein of cognitive restructuring, which happens to be one of my specialties. Today, I would like to talk about the chapter entitled, Was it the Trap or the Cheese? What's your cheese? So I'd like to read the opening quote. It's by William Blake, and it says, "The fox condemns the trap, not himself." So I have an adult and a youth model of the cognitive restructuring and resocialization program that I created. And one of the groups that I conduct with my youth is actually entitled, Was it the Trap or the Cheese? What's your cheese? And I usually start the group out by asking the youth, was it the trap that got the mouse or was it the cheese? Now, most of the youth say it was the trap, but I beg to differ. I say it was the cheese that got the mouse, because the mouse was so focused on what it was going after that it paid no attention to what was connected to its desire. Okay, so I made a few notes that I want to talk about from my chapter. So a lot of people, when I say it's the trap that got the mouse, a lot of people say, well, Anneshia, that's not a fair assessment. As they say, Anneshia, the poor little mouse had no idea that there was a trap connected to its desire for the cheese, its pursuit for the cheese. But I say, okay, well, maybe the first time the first mouse was snapped in the trap, we might be able to say, yeah, well, maybe that was a mistake and the poor little mouse was set up. But here's the argument that I make with my group members. Usually, when a mouse is caught in the trap, there's other mice in the vicinity that witness the trap snapping on the mouse. Not only do the other mice see the trap snap, but usually the trap is laid there. The trap is usually left there in the vicinity for an extended period of time with the mouse that was trapped laying there, dead. So the other mice have the opportunity to look at this situation and say, okay, this mouse was going after some cheese, and apparently the place where the cheese has been positioned is a trap. And this trap took this mouse's life. So, but the other mice have the opportunity to learn from the dilemma of the dead mouse. Okay, but I often wonder if the other mice have been so cheese-matized, that's a word I made up, like hypnotized, except I use an M, cheese-matized. So some of the other mice, I wonder if they're so cheese-matized that they crawl over the dead mouse to get the cheese off the trap. Okay? And so let's talk about that from the people perspective. Okay, let's talk about people. What's your cheese? Because see, that's what I ask the youth in my group. After we get through talking about the poor little mouse that got his neck snapped in the trap, I ask the youth, because most of the youth were court mandated to my program, I ask the youth about their cheese. Okay? So it's not fair of me to challenge my group members about their cheese if I don't cop to my cheese, my former cheese. I've been delivered from my cheese. Okay? Yeah, I've gotten some freedom and understanding. So I'm going to read from the chapter in my book, what my cheese was. It says some people's cheese, and Anneshia fits the criteria of some people here. Some people's cheese is the validation of others. Because of early childhood influences, some people have unfinished business with certain types of people. According to Dr. Joseph, who happens to be a noted expert in the fields of neuroscience and psychology, because of these unconscious influences from our childhood, some people seek out individuals and experiences that create the same not okay emotional atmosphere that was an earlier part of their existence. The doctor says there's two reasons you do it, and both of them are unconscious. One, because it's familiar, and the familiar is easier to accept than what is unfamiliar, even if painful. And two, because we have an unconscious child that has some unfinished business with the types of people who hurt him or her. This child wants to fix the script. The child is seeking to change the last scene. For years, my cheese was trying to win the love and approval from emotionally unavailable people. My mother was never there for me emotionally as a child. I went through all sorts of changes trying to win her love and acceptance, and I never got it. The end. For years, I sought out emotionally unavailable people, trying to make them love and accept me. I went through all sorts of changes trying to win their love and acceptance. They would act as if they loved and accepted me, the cheese, until they had gotten what they wanted. Then came the rejection, the hurt, the abandonment, the trap. What was so amazing about this equation is that I would return to the exact same people repeatedly, seeking love and acceptance, the cheese, after they had previously pulled the bait and switch. My problem was not the trap. My problem was the cheese. Guess what? It was the blind mind syndrome. So now I ask my youth, because a lot of my youth were court mandated to my group, based on being involved in behaviors where they were seeking the reward without the labor. And that's true for a lot of people. There are a lot of men and women in detention centers, or youth in detention centers, men and women in prison, because they were looking for the glory without the story. They wanted the reward without the work. They were looking for a get-rich-quick scheme. They were looking for the so-called easy way out of poverty. Okay, when research says that education is actually the number one way to exit poverty. But because people are so cheese-matized, that's right, they're being cheese-matized because they're watching TV and they're watching videos with people dancing with the cheese. They're listening to rap artists talk about the cheese. So they're being cheese-matized, even though all of the other people in their lives who went after the cheese, trying to get rich quick through illegal activities, have gotten their necks snapped in the trap. They act as if, just like the mice who witnessed the mouse getting snapped in the trap, but they still keep going after the cheese. And there's some people right now in prison for their third or fourth trap snap, and guess what they're sitting in the prison talking about? I'll bet you can't guess what they're sitting in the yard talking about right now. Well, I'm going to tell you. They're talking about the cheese. That's right. They're in the trap snap talking about the cheese. They're not sitting there talking about the trap. If they're talking about the trap, the only thing they're talking about how they're going to outmaneuver it next time. I'm going to zag instead of zig. I'm going to bob instead of weave. Well, guess what? Let me share something with you. They have a bob trap and a weave trap. They have a zig trap and a zag trap. Okay? The makers of the trap have a lot of different traps. So they are aware of your maneuver tactics. Okay? And So I'm going to read another little portion out of my chapter where I talk about this other dilemma, the get-rich quick scheme, okay? But first, let me tell you about a book I read years ago, and I talk about it in this chapter in my book. I read an article that was based on a book by a Mr. Jeffrey Rubin. He wrote a book in 1981 called Psychological Traps. And in this book, he talked about the purpose of a trap. So let me read that directly from, I quote him in my article. A trap allows hunters to outwit their quarry, which is their prey or their victim, to offset any advantage that the victim or prey may have by virtue of its greater speed, power, or the limited destructive capacity of the hunter's weapon. An animal trap accomplishes these ends in a strikingly simple and clever way. It brings the quarry or the prey to the hunter rather than the other way around. And you know what I tell the youth in my group? The fact that a trap exists is a compliment. Yeah, it's a compliment because apparently the makers of the trap feel that you have some form of advantage of whether it's greater speed or power, or they're concerned that their weapons have limited destructive power. So to neutralize those two things, they have to create a trap. Wow. And guess how the hunters do it? Mr. Rubin just told you. They bring the prey to the hunter. And I bet you can't guess how they do it. Oh, you got it. It's the cheese. So you may say, Anneshia, well, thank you for telling us about this problem, but how do we deal with the problem? Well, I talk about it in my article. See, the way that I stopped seeking the validation of emotionally unavailable people, which was my cheese, okay, and then I got caught up in the hurt and rejection and the anger and bitterness after I had paid people to act as if they loved me for short increments of time, and then they would leave me and go act like they were loving somebody else or liking somebody else on my dime. You know, all of that. That was my cheese. So what I had to do was change my thinking. I had to renew my mind about the cheese. Yeah, I had to renew my mind. I had to repent because, see, the word repent means change your thinking. And, and a lot of times, I got a lot of issues with the church, even though I'm an evangelist. I have a lot of issues with the church because they don't explain stuff like that. Repent. Repent means change your thinking. Because, see, if I just change my behavior, oh, I'm sorry, Judge. I'm sorry, Judge. I'm not going to do that anymore. Yes, I am. If I don't change my thinking, the thinking that caused me to engage in the dysfunctional behavior, I'm going to engage in that behavior again once the opportunity presents itself. And you would say, well, Anneshia, wouldn't you have learned your lesson? Not if I'm still cheese-matized. Everywhere you go, they got posters of cheese. They got articles about cheese. They got that videos with cheese. People dancing with the cheese and singing about the cheese and commercials about the cheese. If you buy this particular outfit or if you buy this particular car, everyone in the world is going to love you. You're going to be popular and all your problems are going to go away. And when we keep buying, we keep going for it. We're cheese-matized. So I had to change my thinking about the cheese, okay? And so that seeking the validation of emotionally unavailable people, I had to change my thinking. My value as a person is not connected to the approval of others, okay? And people who are caught up in that get rich quick scheme thing as it relates to illegal activities and illegal endeavors, they need to change their mind as it relates to the game is the way out of poverty. And the game, they call the game, which is actually a trap, and that's amazing to me that you can make a trap and call it a game and people think, let's go play, okay, snap, 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 and they still don't hear it. I mean, you hear the snap, you hear the trap snapping all around you. Pop, 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 pop. That almost sounds like an automatic weapon. And so you hear it, you see it, you're like, pop, 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 pop. Wow, look at that. Somebody just got shot. Somebody just went to jail. And then, somebody put up a picture of a cheese or a video of a cheese. Somebody dancing with the cheese, and you start throwing your hands in the air, wave them like you don't care. Oh, cheese. And I just forgot that I'm just seeing the trap snap on 15 people right there beside me. And then you hear people bragging, I did 10 years flat in the penitentiary. I did 20 years flat. I walked it down. I did 10 years. Well, then you're going to tell me if you can do 10 years standing on your head in the penitentiary, you can't go do 4 years or 6 years at the university? Help me understand that. I think that maybe you've been cheese-matized. So that's a chapter in my book. Was it the trap or the cheese? What's your cheese? My book is available on Amazon in paperback or ebook format. You can also purchase it on my website. My website is Anneshia.consulting.com. Anneshia is spelled ANNESHIA. Anneshia.consulting.com. Thank you.